Welcome, welcome everyone who's joining, watching a replay. My name is Luminara Serdar. I'm an autism transformation expert. In that, I work to help confuse, overwhelmed, frustrated parents to shift their children's autism behaviors to more calm, more connected, communicating by getting at the root cause of what's causing these behaviors deep inside the body. I know there's ABA, applied behavioral analysis, that teaches kids to do behaviors differently. I know there's speech therapy, occupational therapy. Those are the three major things that parents are told to do for their kids to help them be more functional. But what I'm talking about is looking at the biochemistry, looking at the digestion, looking at what's going on inside the body. And when we shift those things, what we see is a shift in behaviors. And I'll go through a lot of examples of that today. This is the 4Ds webinar, and let's just get rolling. I have a slide deck to show you, so I'm going to set that up and share my screen. Welcome to everyone attending live. If you want to type into the chat who you are, where you're calling from, what you hope to get out of today. Sometimes people just need to hear the same information again and again, even though you kind of know it or you've heard it before. And maybe you're brand new to, wow, what's beyond ABA, speech, and OT? Like, what else is there? You know, whether you're a practitioner or whether you're a parent who's walking on eggshells, just wants a little more peace in the family, a little less rigidity. You want your child to give you eye contact, have more communication, tell you about their day after school. You're in the right place. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm setting up my slideshow so we can get rolling. And here we go. I have entitled this The Critical 4Ds for Shifting Autism Behaviors Naturally. Why? Because we're not using drugs, we're not using medications. We're going to naturally shift. I'm going to talk about what naturally shifts what's going on in the body. And let's go over those 4Ds. The first one is diet. It is super important, very critical for what goes in the body. And I'll just tell you, I talked to a client yesterday who's actually in my program, and we're going through a whole process of natural detoxification, naturally fixing the gut. And when we got down to it, she says, yeah, my child's coming along, little things. But when we got down to it, I found out he was still eating three things. He was still eating chicken nuggets. I don't know if they're organic. I don't know what's in them. He still doesn't have a big diet. He's not getting any of this kind of stuff in his diet that's shown in the picture. You know, the fruits and vegetables, the natural meats that are raised well. So I can see why they're making small steps of progress. On the other hand, there's a 21-year-old girl in my program whose dad has fed her this stuff her whole life, and she started shifting within 2 days of being on the program. So I give this illustration to show diet is really key, and it's a foundation. And then the next thing we need to work on is digestion. We'll dive into each of these in more slides. You know, these are kids who have belly problems. This little girl's eating sand. Kids who are seeking sand, dirt, eating garbage, looking to lick the rocks outside. This relates to digestion, and we'll talk about why, but we actually have to fix what's going on in the gut. Drainage, we might understand drainage in the context of the sewer system or how our pipes drain from our house, but there's a drainage system in the body that is equivalent. It's pretty similar. And so we'll go over that. And then detox. I call this removing wrenches from the gears, because when you remove things like mercury, arsenic that can be found in rice, I'm finding more and more kids with uranium, cesium. These are radioactive elements, and they get inside the body, inside the cells, and they gum up the wrenches of that are supposed to make the body functions go smoothly. That's the biochemical reactions. So these are the 4 Ds: diet, digestion, drainage, and detox. Let's talk about diet. A gluten-free, dairy-free diet is super important. It may not be the only thing you need to do, but we know gluten has detrimental effect on the gut. It can open the gut lining. It may be that our highly hybridized gluten is the issue. It may be that most of our wheat is sprayed with glyphosate, which is an antibiotic. It's a weed killer, but it's an antibiotic. Right before harvest, they spray this Roundup, this glyphosate, on the wheat, and then that's a part of what you're eating in all your gluten, your pancakes, your pasta, your bread, if it's not organic, and maybe even if it is organic, because that stuff drifts. Dairy-free is really important because dairy can create constipation. It can get broken down, but not fully. And these not fully broken down little protein molecules can leak through the gut and get in the brain and create some issues. Both of these can create issues in the brain. One of the things about dairy is those molecules that get in the brain can look like a receptor on our brain sites, and that can affect speech. A low sugar diet is really important because the more sugar, and actually the more gluten or easy carbs, I call them, like potatoes and starches, the more you have of that, the more you can feed the bad bacteria in the gut. So we want to bring the sugar content low and anything that converts easily into sugar. Soy, corn, and eggs, you might need to eliminate these because there might be sensitivities to these. I said gluten and dairy-free is the first step, but it's possible that you may need to eliminate other things, especially if your child has rashes, red cheeks, red ears, certain behaviors after eating, like maybe a brightly colored, artificially colored type thing. These artificial dyes, they can create hyperactivity and excitability in the brain. Gluten actually can contribute to anger issues or hyperactivity. So what we want to do is look at what's your child eating, and if you eliminate that, do the behavior stop or go down? MSG, this is a flavoring that's in so many processed foods, and it makes things taste good, but again, it excites the brain, creates hyperactivity, and can contribute to ADHD. I already mentioned artificial colors, but flavors and preservatives as well. If any of you guys have heard of the Food Babe, her Instagram handle is Food Babe. Her name is Vanny Harry, and she's trying to get companies to take all this toxic stuff out of foods. If you don't follow her, you might want to start listening to what she has to say. And she's gathering a big following. And what we want to do is change our food system so that this junk isn't in it. The system is really stacked against us when it comes to food. If we're shopping in the grocery store and we see this gluten-free product or that thing, all natural, you really have to read labels and dig deeper as to what's in it, because there's usually junk in it. Artificial sugar substitutes are not good for the body. And as I mentioned, the gluten-free substitutes are also usually high in carbs, usually not organic, and they're just going to be a substitute that feeds those bad microbes in the gut. There we go. And I want to give an example of, a shift that's happened. So this is Teresa from Illinois, her daughter Katie. After being on our program, she said her sleep, and after changing the diet too, she says her sleep has improved. She's waking later in the morning. She used to wake up really early. She doesn't feel bloated anymore. And after she eliminates, she feels good. She's been connecting and very supportive of her sister, who was going through a rough time, which was pretty new. She's made a smooth transition into college, has greater resilience, and a more stable mental emotional state. This girl, Katie, her mom told me that until she started the GAPS diet, this is a gut and psychology syndrome diet from Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. Before she started that diet, she just ate kind of regular food. And after she started that diet, which is a lot of eggs, whole meats, fermented foods, really whole foods, what would happen is she had stomach upset all the time, and she thought that was a normal state of being. So think about your kids. Are they pushing on their belly? Do they not want to eat? Because maybe it hurts. So this girl, when she went on the GAPS diet, said, oh, for the first time, my belly doesn't hurt. For the first time in her life. She was probably not 18. I think they started it maybe when she was about 15. So this girl went through 15 years of her belly hurting because that was her normal. So think about your kids, think about what they feel. They might not even know that they're in pain, but they're in pain every day from what they eat. This is another one where there's improved interaction and understanding. This was Jacob. He's been healthy now for almost a week. He was on our 8-week program, and I coached this mom a lot with the different kinds of foods she can trade out and give him instead. So he's been healthy now for almost a week. He has regular bowel movements again, and he's taking all his supplements. He is definitely able to focus more eye contact, and he's starting to understand emotions. He pushed his sister, and when she cried, he instantly went over and gave her a hug all by himself. She received some eye drops, and there was something going on for her, and he gave her a big hug. And he's now playing with his sister, which had never happened before. He had never interacted. And she said she cried happy tears. He still eats gluten. After being sick, it was hard getting any food into him, so she had to go back to his favorites. He tried raw veggies and liked the peppers and hummus. That was one of the things I suggested. Now, when we have setbacks and our kids get sick, we might need to give them what they love, but she was already making some good progress, which is amazing. I want to now talk about digestion. This is anywhere from the mouth down the esophagus, into the stomach, and into the small intestine and large intestine. And then the end of digestion is when we poop out what we don't need, or we pee out the stuff that our body's processed. So this whole process is digestion. It starts with our kids chewing really well. And chewing really well helps us to digest better when the food gets into the small intestine. But things that can inhibit or wreck our digestion are dysbiosis. So that's an imbalance of microbes. We have more bad microbes and less good microbes. And those microbes, or our microbiota, our microbiome, helps us digest food, produce neurotransmitters, and provides nutrients for us that we can't make ourselves. So when our gut is in a state of imbalance with these microbes, we cannot function well. And this also affects the brain in a big way, because those microbes, some of them migrate up the vagus nerve, which it innervates all our organs, can migrate up the vagus nerve and get into the brain and be helpful or not helpful. And when we have inflammation, that means, think about inflammation. What does that mean? When you have a cut, you see inflammation, and you see your body healing by creating swelling, redness, heat. If we have constant swelling, redness, and heat in our gut lining, do you think these cells can do what they're supposed to do? These little finger-like projections, the microvilli, we have a lot of surface area here so that we can absorb our nutrients we've broken down. But if these guys are not healthy, and this, we can look at here, they're not healthy, and there's space in between the cells when there's not supposed to be, then a lot of things can leak through. Microbes, undigested food particles. This is where you see food allergies and sensitivities, because things are leaking through. As I mentioned, in dairy, if we don't fully digest it, those not fully digested proteins can leak through. And if we have a leaky gut, we typically have a leaky blood-brain barrier, and these things can leak into the brain and create all kinds of problems. And that's leaky gut. And the inflammation just means we don't have a healthy environment for our enzymes, our digestive enzymes, to work. And inflammation has to do with our immune system too. So it means our immune system isn't functioning well. Maybe there's overreaction or there's underreaction. I wanted to share about speech and social improvements in this little guy. His mom said, in general, his anxiety has decreased. Getting him to use the restroom at all was a journey of a couple years. He was only comfortable, basically pooping in their house. And they felt lost because you can't really go outside of the house if your child doesn't go to the bathroom outside of the house. He couldn't sleep over at grandma's house because he wouldn't go poop there. And since starting the protocol that we use, his ritualized behavior around going to the bathroom faded, and he doesn't do it at all. He used to have this whole speech thing, this whole saying he used to have to repeat with his mom, like, I have to go to the bathroom. She's like, okay, I have to go to the bathroom. Okay, I have to go to the bathroom. So it was repeated, and it faded down to nothing, where he just goes to the bathroom. And if they're out, he goes to the bathroom. And so that, for their family and other kids, was a huge stressor, and the relief was really great. And others have noticed he's really participating instead of freezing up and tensing up. He's more carefree. He's singing and dancing. He had a little music class he would go to and be completely in himself and not participate. And then he started singing, dancing. So people are noticing. And his speech therapist said he's increased his use of spontaneous conversation and has inflection in his voice. He's making relevant comments. And later on, he would actually in the car say how his day was at school. He would share, he would exceed his speech goals. So every time they had to make new goals. And this was a mom who diligently followed our protocol. And we'll talk about the next steps of what she did and why it's important. But I wanted to say about one other mom, Lonnie. She said this about Valerie, her 7-year-old. She was severely autistic. And she said she started our protocol too. And she said, we saw some very pleasant changes in her overall calmness. She's more consistent now using words she would only use rarely. So HEP for help, she for shower, come, food. This, your child may not be this severely autistic, but this was a big advancement for her to use these more often. And I see this again and again with parents where the kids are using more words consistently and they're stringing more words together. She was having me sing to her a few nights ago, Twinkle, Twinkle in, Twinkle, Twinkle in French. And I stopped after the first sentence and she finished the entire song. So this was a big thing. Yes, she had stimming, verbal stims, and she had many less days with that. So I told you a little bit in the beginning about drainage, but I want to really explain that in greater detail because I feel this is the part that most practitioners miss. I've even been to trainings specifically for autism doctors, and they miss this drainage piece. I sat next to a very well-respected autism doctor in the audience, and it was during a talk, and it was this, someone was saying something relevant, and I leaned over and I said, what do you do for drainage? He obviously didn't understand what I meant. And he said, I don't do that. I can't do everything. Someone else can do that. So I feel like if your practitioner is missing this key step, trying to detox is going to be harmful for your child. And I'll show you why. You have in your house, I'm assuming most of you have a bathtub or a shower, sink, toilet, and when you flush, when you empty, that stuff goes down through the pipes in your house and out the sewer, out into your septic system. But what happens if there's a clog somewhere in this line, right? Stuff comes back up into the house. I'm sure you may have experienced at some point a clog in your sink or your toilet and needed to use the plunger or maybe needed to snake your plumbing or get a plumber to help. This is drainage. We want everything to be easily draining through the pipes. In the body, I know this is a little complicated, but I'm going to explain it. In the body, we have a similar pipe system. We have to empty from the bottom. This is why pooping is so critically important. We have to eliminate every day. Your child must be pooping 1 to 4 times a day. That's normal. I know if you look on websites, if you look at WebMD or some of the other common mainstream medical information sites, they will tell you pooping every few days is okay. It's not. And I'll tell you why. Those toxins that are sitting in the colon, if they don't get eliminated from the body, our system recirculates that water and toxins from the colon, and it circulates all through the body again. So this is why if your child poops, what we see is a decrease in anxiety, a decrease in anger, a decrease in those unwanted behaviors. So the colon is the first area that has to be cleared and moving. The next area is the liver and kidneys, right? Because we pee and we poop. I mean, we pee out every day, so that's important. And then the liver is detoxifying every single day. And where is it dumping that? Into the colon, into the intestines. Those toxins are coming from the liver that have come from the rest of the body and dumped here to get processed and then go through the colon. Most of our kids, actually most of the adults today, have an overwhelmed liver and need liver support. So we support the liver. This is the kind of next level up in this funnel. You can see this upside down triangle is like a funnel. If the funnel's blocked at the bottom, the rest is going to be blocked and all that waste is going to get stuck in the body. And what does it do? It affects the brain. So the liver is the next thing we need to take care of. And these arrows indicate the flow of toxins. The next level up, the lungs. Our lungs and skin, they also are elimination organs. These are drainage organs. They need to be open and working. Have you ever, had bad breath in the morning or smelt your child's breath and gone, oh my God, vampire breath or whatever? Monster breath, that's because the body's working hard to eliminate through the lungs, probably because it's not eliminating well through the liver, kidneys, and colon. And if the liver's backed up, what we're going to see is rashes, so armpits, neck, behind elbows, behind the knees. We're going to see eczema, psoriasis. Sometimes we'll see dark circles under the eyes. All of these are signs the liver's not working well, and we need liver support. The next level up in our drainage funnel is the lymphatic system that's represented by these green lines. And of course, we have lymph nodes. Have you ever felt in your child, in their neck, a lump and been concerned? That's probably a swollen lymph node working on some kind of infection or toxin to clear. So look at this lymphatic system. It runs throughout the body just like our blood vessels, and it takes waste away from the cells, and all of these lymph channels dump the lymph into the blood at the heart, and then that goes into the liver. Again, the toxins get to be processed. But if our liver's backed up, our lymph might be backed up. Our lymph might be backed up anyway. And where do all those toxins sit? They sit in our cells. They sit in between our cells. They sit in our fatty tissues. And the last place to drain is actually the brain. So if we don't have the lymphatics open, it's going to be really hard to drain those toxins out of the brain, toxins from the food that have gotten in there, toxins from the air we breathe, toxins from the water we drink. It's going to be really hard to move those. So this step, drainage, is super important before you start detoxifying. Because if you start detoxifying, let's say we grab heavy metals out of the brain, but oops, the lymph is congested in the neck and we can't get anything through there, it's just going to recirculate and make things worse. This is what you see as detox reactions. Some people call them Herxheimer reactions. And this is why we're not moving these things out of the body. So we drain from the bottom up. As I said, the brain is the last to eliminate. Pooping every day is essential. And the body needs energy to do all these functions. We need mitochondrial support. So many of our kids have mitochondrial dysfunction. You can feel it in their muscle tone. You can see they're not sitting up straight. You can see maybe your child gets really tired after a walk and or doesn't want to walk with you. When they get tired after school. I had one little boy I was working with whose mom said, I think I have a story of him, but he would get tired after school and have to go to his room and no interaction with people. So if your child's not interacting and they're in their own world, this can be a reason, right? They don't have enough energy in the body to focus outward because they're focusing inward. And then, as I said, we need to support the liver, gallbladder, kidneys. Lymph must be flowing to empty the brain. And we use herbs for drainage and support in the tissues and in between the tissues too. It's not just the lymph, it's the space in between all the tissues next to the lymph. And as I said, we detox the brain last. And I typically find heavy metals, radiation, pesticides, these are all creating inflammation in the brain. And what happens when the brain's inflamed? Your neurons don't connect. It's not working well. Maybe we have brain fog. We can't think. We don't have a good memory. I hear this from my clients a lot. The cognitive behavior, their cognitive function is low. Their ability to read, comprehension, and remembering what they read and comprehend is challenging. The social aspect, they're not able to connect. All of these have to do with brain inflammation at the root. This 8-year-old girl, wow, she had a lot of frustration and tantrums, anxiety, rigid in her timing, rigid in her behaviors, rigid in her schedule. She complained all the time. And I heard her on our calls. Her mom was trying to get her to go into school from the car and she didn't want to go. God bless her mom. She was wonderful. She had bad seasonal allergies. She couldn't fall asleep. She was really bloated and had gut issues. Her mom this is an 8-year-old girl. She didn't have autism, actually. She just had all these behavioral issues, and her mom had to help her dress in the morning. And she got mad about having to do anything. And we put her on a protocol and she was sleeping easy. Her allergy symptoms really reduced. She didn't have to take her daily medicine that her mom gave her. I can't remember what it was, Claritin or something. Her tummy issues were gone. She was trying new food. That was a big deal. She was a picky eater too. And she could easily get dressed on her own. And she would even help her younger brother, right? She was the first one to help calm him down. She was regulating her emotions, not as many tantrums, and her happy times were happier. And for Kara and her son, David, her son had tested positive for the folate receptor antibody. So you remember I mentioned when we have dairy and sometimes those proteins can leak out of the gut and look very similar to one of our brain receptors. It's this folate antibody, folate receptor in the brain. And when our immune system goes, hey, that doesn't look quite right, the dairy product, hey, that doesn't look quite right. We better get rid of that. Let's make antibodies to it. This folate receptor looks similar. So the body's like, oh, we better attack that too. And why is that important? Because folate, folinic acid, vitamin B9, this gets in the brain and helps with speech. It helps us to talk. So if our body is destroying the very thing that brings that into the brain, we're not really bringing that into the brain. So why do you think we have speech problems? This is one contributor. So her son had tested positive for this antibody, and now he was negative after being on our protocol for a few months. Speech, communication, vocabulary have increased significantly. He's in 2nd grade, but reading at end of 3rd grade level. His vocabulary is at a 4th grade level. He's more verbal and interactive with kids. It wasn't always like this, but I'm getting him to understand more. For example, if I give an instruction in advance of an event, they're going to a birthday party or something, I explain we have to leave early, he's now able to calmly say goodbye and leave instead of throwing a tantrum. So the transitions are so much easier. Who has trouble with transitions with their kids? Who cannot transition easily? This comes from the brain, all these toxins and inflammation in the brain that aren't draining, and we're putting more in from our diet, maybe, maybe not, depends on your diet. So yeah, tell me if your child is having these problems with transition, and do you want to see a change? If you do, I have the Transforming Autism Jumpstart program that I've had so many people go through, and I can honestly tell you that 100% of the people that have gone through this, that have put their kids through this program, it's education and it's a protocol that I help you customize. 100% of the kids who have gone through this, the parents have reported changes in their child. 100%. How often can people say that? If they followed what I told them to do, they saw changes in their child. And you can get more information on this by either typing this URL into your browser, or you can scan this QR code and get to the page that gives you all the information on this program. It's 8 weeks. I'm going to go back. It's an 8-week program. And what I do is I tell you what the protocol is, why we're doing it, educate you on various aspects of it, and then customize a protocol for your child in a coaching call we have at the beginning. And I'll also coach you on dietary changes and what you can do to help with that diet part of things. So there's that QR code again. If you want to pull up that page on your browser and go back to it after this presentation, you'll get all the scoop on what's included in that program. So remember the third D is detox. It has to be done in the right order, and drainage has to be done first. I use very successfully specific targeted supplements and what's called binders. Binders are like little sponges you put in the gut that hold on to the toxins. Remember I said when we eat and everything goes into the colon and we're creating stool, we're creating the fecal matter through our colon, and water's getting absorbed. That's our body's natural process. Toxins can get absorbed. If you have binders in there, the toxins will stay in there and not get reabsorbed. And that's a really big part of our protocol. The binders we use, which are very specific and special, our parents are reporting within 15 to 30 minutes, they see changes in their child after they give this binder. And I call it the magic binder. And so those toxins don't get reabsorbed. They actually go out of the body all the way through. And again, you cannot begin detoxification until your child's pooping daily, until the liver's supported, until the lymph is flowing all that fluid waste out of the body, and the nervous system is able to relax. So that's a big piece of it too. And mom and dad, your calm helps, because when you're calm, your child is more calm. Who's noticed that? If you're upset, your child gets more upset because they're feeding off your energy. And if you're calmer, your child gets calmer. So yeah, just type yes if you're noticing that. I want to give you another example. This is a little guy who started sleeping through the night, had better words, better eye contact, communicating more with us. She can't wait to see more shifts in the next 10 months, is what she said. So very cool. Awesome. And Mary and her little 3-year-old Jace, she said in our program, all the questions she had about which supplement to start first, how to do it, when to add the others, got answered during our call. And she said I guided her to which ones to increase to see more changes. So even though we start out with the protocol, we help support you throughout the way with calls to, because there's bumps in the road. Like, how do you do this? Oh, I'm seeing this. Let's do this. So you can get help along the way. You're not just thrown out there and left alone. In just a couple weeks of being on the protocol, my son's therapist told me he's more focused. He's also sleeping without having to take melatonin and not waking up hyper in the mornings. Who wants to see those kind of things improve? Type yes into the chat if you want to. Love to hear. So let me tell you a little bit more about this program. It's 8 weeks. It's the beginning of a longer protocol. It's only the first step. I used to have parents come into the longer year-long program, but I thought I wanted to give you a little taste of success and see what's possible before committing time, energy, and money into a longer program. The course guides you through a 30-day protocol. It gets your child pooping regularly and starting to eliminate certain toxins from the colon. And we customize it, as I mentioned. And if we need additional supplements, you get 10% off certain supplements. The value of this course is actually $3,500, but your investment is only $497. So I think that's a huge deal. And for 100% of our parents seeing some changes in their child within this 30 days. So if you want to join now, this is a QR code. This is different than the one I showed before because this one will actually get you to the page where you purchase. So that's the link and that's the QR code. I'll give you a moment. I have a question from Michaela. Does the program offer assistance in getting these kids to comply? My kiddo is verbal and loves his food, and at every turn, whether it be parties, school food program, family function, he gives us a crazy hard time and gets very upset because he sees other kids eating what he can't. This is a huge problem for us. This is our biggest challenge. Please speak to this. Okay, Michaela, I don't have that as part of this program, but I can try and give you some pointers now. I think if he's capable, I don't know how old he is, but if he's capable of understanding, I would start educating him about our food supply and about how that food isn't good for the body and use language he can understand, how it's not good for the body, it makes the tummy hurt, and maybe he's had these experiences. I can tell you, Michaela, I had a client, he was around 11-ish, and they were in my program. It's actually was for this boy who was in my program, but the mom was doing the protocol on herself and her other kiddo. And what this boy experienced is when he also had a bedwetting issue. And at 11 years old, that's a big issue. You can't sleep over at your friend's house. You can't do other things. He was very motivated to do the protocol. And what he found is after having a clean diet and then having a relapse, a slip back to something gluten, he would feel crappy and he would have symptoms. And he learned how he felt in his body, and he actually didn't want the gluten anymore. He was able to self-police himself in a way. So this is, really important to start educating your kids too, to the level that they can understand why they're not getting that. And I've also seen that if the whole family eats that way, and you just say, this is the way our family eats because we know it's healthier. So there's kind of a mental training on this, I believe. Marion says supplements that might not be available in certain countries. Is there help to ship down? Where are you from, Marion? Because the company I use, we have a distributor in the UK and for Europe. These are in the US and Canada, and they do ship international. Oh, Ghana, that could be a problem for you. You'd probably, so for places where the supplements are not available, many people use a courier. And what that is you hire someone in your home country to be your courier. You order in the US and you ship to their US address, and they somehow have a magic way of getting it in your country. They have ways. So that's the way around that. You're welcome, Michaela. All right. I just wanted to say, I think I'm going to stop the recording for a sec here, guys. And I'd love to see if you guys have any questions or any thoughts. Please feel free to type them into the chat. I saw some yeses go by. I saw Jim and some other folks. So I'll give you a moment to either raise your digital hand or kind of wave to me, or just type a question in. And if there's no questions, we'll wrap it up. So now's the time. Lovely to see so many people and from so many places too. Brianna, I'm currently doing GAPS diet, but I notice more OCD behaviors. Can this be due to the glutamate in the stock? It could be, but Brianna, my guess would be that by doing the GAPS diet, you're reorganizing what's happening in the gut. Are you doing any fermented products? My guess would be yes. So what you're doing is shifting the microbiome, and that can be stirring things up, and maybe you're not pulling toxins out. Or it could be not anything having to do with the diet, but your child got a strep infection or some infection, and that can create OCD behaviors. So there's lots, I don't know anything more than what you typed in the chat, but there could be many reasons for that. Tina, you're welcome. All right. If there's no other questions, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate your attendance and your attention, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Thanks. Bye, everyone.